Hello and welcome to Clipping In. It's Wednesday, July the 29th, and are we on the fourth heat wave now? Well, I've heard some terrible rumours about reservoir levels dropping, so I think you can guess where we're heading today. Yes, we're up in the Pennines again. There'll be no new ground today. I'm picking a known quantity. It's 4 weeks since the last video, and as you might have guessed, another injury break, another interruption. People on Strava will already know that I managed quite successfully to crush my left hand between two concrete paving slabs, and nearly, thankfully I wasn't successful, nearly severed the top of my little finger. Oh, did it bleed. And that last video, the Devil's Elbow one, which was 4 weeks ago, foolishly I got so frustrated with all the time laid up with the hip on the back. I thought, oh, I'm not going to be kept in. I can ride one-handed. So I stripped some of the supporting back, strapping and so on. And yeah, I did that 60-odd miler, the Devil's Elbow. And for 2 hours, I was having a whale of a time. But then the non-stop bumps and vibration and the sort of weight that you put on your hand without knowing about it, they all seem to add up. And going down home, I was in constant pain with it. I know, looking on the footage of that last video, I'm constantly shifting this hand around. So yeah, it's been a frustrating 4 weeks. I've had lots and lots of good weather. I've been out on little test rides twice, but this is the first time that I can honestly say now it's bearable. I can't make a proper fist because I've strapped it, but I can almost make a loose fist. And so we're heading out at least to Dowry Reservoir and Denshaw. See if I can get 40 miles in. That's a good box ticked. Ah, I've missed it up here. The only saving grace of this layoff for the hand injury, unlike the hip and the back, is that I've been able to go on the indoor bike 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a week and give it some stick. Give it what for. Whereas with the earlier injuries, I was stuck in a chair or stuck in bed. I've also been able to get out for some nice green space, great outdoors time, up in the Three Peaks area, out and about in Calderdale, just lovely big countryside, the sort of places I'd love to go on a bike, but at the moment I can't. So yeah, it's great to get your ration of the big country anywhere you can. Well, it's quite a strong wind, west-southwest. This descent feels slow. So the rumours are true. Gowrie Reservoir on the right. Long-term viewers might remember last year around this time, July, August, it was a lot emptier than that. But it's certainly dropped when you consider the very, very wet winter and early spring that we had. So we're dropping into Denshaw village, and I'm going to go up to Grange Bar, which is that road you can see diagonally heading left. Turn at the top of there, and then head back. I shall get 14. Oi, what a surface! Washboard. So we're dropping back down now from Grange Bar, back towards Denshaw, and you're always at this point greeted by this wonderful sight of the moors stretched out there. Look, wonderful. And just right of centre, trending diagonally, you can see the road that winds its way up past the reservoirs, and ultimately skyline in the centre. That's Buckstones. I don't know how many of you have been riding your bikes in the big heat wave that's reigned supreme for the last month. That's some pretty scary temperatures. I think the June one was worse. I wouldn't like to guess at the temperatures today. The forecast had said 25 with quite high humidity, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel that bad. Not around here anyway. Unless I've just got used to being on the indoor bike and I'm heat conditioned. Nevertheless, it's still warm enough to pay attention to drinking while you're out, especially if you're going out for 4, 5, 6 hours plus. That's when dehydration deficits really can catch you out. I was reading a journal paper on this either yesterday or Sunday, and in the experiments, what they did, they took runners, sub-elite runners, put them in environments on treadmills that were temperature and humidity controlled, and they had them doing 2.5 hour time trials at the marathon pace, and they were measuring the sweat loss for different conditions and different combinations of conditions. And then they also placed them on different drinking protocols. So some were drinking 300 ml per hour, some 600, some 900, and some were trying to match their sweat rates. So it was a pretty thorough series of tests. I would imagine it'll have gone on for a good few weeks. Subjects will have earned their corn. One of the interesting things, they found that at marathon pace, in those conditions on a treadmill, some sweat rates were as high as between 1.5 and 2 litres per hour, which for their time trial that would max out at about 5 litres. But you imagine if you were working, maybe not quite that hard, but on a big traditional cycling run where you go out for 6, 7, 8 hours, the the sweat loss would be frightening. And what they found with the runners, it's a little bit different for running, I was going to say, because they're bouncing around, whereas for us on bikes, our torso's fairly still. So I dare say we can take down and keep down slightly more fluid. But they were able, in some cases, by pumping the stomachs of the test subjects on finishing, they were able to get a good estimate of how much fluid was going down the gullet into the stomach and upper intestine and actually being used to offset sweat rates, and how much was just sitting there and sloshing. Nothing worse than that. Even on a bike, I've been in that position where, especially if you're on aero bars, in a time trialing position, when you're right down and you've overdrunk and you go around a corner and and what they found, almost without any variation, the maximum fluid absorption rate for their subjects was between 700 and 800 mil per hour. No matter how much they drank, even if they drank 1.5 litres to try and match the sweat rate, the body couldn't use that. So that's really, this bottle, I think it's an 800 mil, Science in Sport type. And that was the maximum amount that they could actually use. Any more than that was just slosh. That's something that's very interesting, because if you break that down, it's 13 millilitres per minute. And I think I've said before on the channel that dehydration on long rides is far, far worse than bonk or hypoglycemia. Far worse. Because of the time it takes to rebalance dehydration. If you think about it, if your sweat rate's a little bit lower than those test subjects, say it's 1.2 litres per hour, hilly country, warm conditions, if you're out for 6 or 7 hours, you've lost 8 litres, 7 to 8 litres lost. And if you just take the traditional approach of an odd sip now and again, you haven't got a chance of paying that back. And the old rule of thumb used to be, once you've lost 2% of your body weight through dehydration, performance suffers. I would say that until it becomes catastrophic, you could probably lose 5% of your body weight. That's when you'll be really suffering. Racing heart rate, cramping, cognitive issues. So, well, for me at least, that would be 4.5 litres would be 5%. But if you're sweating 1.2 litres an hour, after 5 hours, even if you've been drinking at 300 mil per hour, you're in trouble. Long-term viewers with a long memory might remember an episode exactly like that, about 3 years ago. I did a 130 miler out in the Dales, limestone country, and I made the foolish mistake of rationing my drinks, thinking that I could catch up at a shop at 90 miles. So it meant that the conditions were hotter than I expected, sweat rates were higher, there was a masking wind, and I really got into trouble by 90 miles. Yes, I called in at the garage shop, I bought plenty, I drank plenty, but it was too late. The debt was there. I could have been I could have been 6 litres in debt at that point. And that's why that's 12, 13 mil per minute limitation. That's why in medical situations they go straight to IV rehydration. They don't bother with the stomach, because if you're in trouble, you can't pay it back through your stomach and upper intestine. And if you think of the numbers, if the maximum absorption rate is, let's say, 800 mil, but your sweat rate outstrips that 1.2 litres, you're still withdrawing 400 mil per hour. 6 hours in, you're 2.4 overdrawn. So it means that no matter what your intake, you're going to suffer dehydration. The best you can do is delay it. And if you're not going for some super long ride, you can pay the dehydration back at home, overnight, and even the next day. It also means, if you're from the old school trad mindset, you maybe have an occasional sip from your canisters while riding, and then you say, oh, we've got a cafe stop, tea stop, teapot for 2, and drink it yourself. But the problem is, again, like we've said, you can only absorb 12 to 13 mil per minute. So if you're riding for 3 hours in the heat, that teapot for 2, all to yourself, it's not going to do a lot. And the problem is, even if you fill your stomach up with tea as you leave the cafe, like some kind of homage to a Saharan camel, your body can only absorb it at that limited rate. I mean, really, you're talking about an ordinary soft drink like Fanta or Coke. I think they're 330 mil a can of that. So it takes you 25 minutes for your body to use that. And once you leave that watering hole, the cafe or whatever, you're riding again, you're losing sweat again, even if you slow the pace down slightly. You're continuing to dehydrate. That's why I got into such a mess in 2023 on that 130 miler. If I'd stopped at Settle at the garage, or garage, if I'd stopped there, knocked a litre down and let it settle, I wouldn't have been too bad. But by having a minimal stop, filling my bottles, taking a drink, setting off, it wasn't long till I was cycling that infernal heat again, losing 1.2 litres an hour of sweat. Just getting worse and worse. So yeah, been a bit of a ramble, but I think it demonstrates that little and often, from the very first hour, is absolutely the best way for drinking if you're planning to go out in heatwave temperatures for anything over 3 hours. Can't go wrong with that. Oh, there's something here for the car enthusiasts. I've no idea what this yellow thing is, but it looks fancy. Oh, Lotus. Yeah, so just to round off our topic, I said that dehydration is far worse than hypoglycemia or bonk. With early onset, well, first thing, if you have a feeding strategy and you absolutely want to avoid bonk, then you're really ramming the carbohydrates every hour. But if you've, yeah, I mean, at pro level now, they've got much, much bigger engines, for want of a better word, and they've trained themselves to take on and absorb 110, 120, 130 grams. You do hear some talk of people saying, oh, in such and such an event, such and such a big star, he took 200 grams an hour. That's might be true, but also, as we were saying with hydration, there's a world of difference between taking a certain quantity on board, keeping it down, and your body being actually able to use it and put it to some use and do work with it. Most of the stats and figures that I've seen with dual carb, like glucose fructose combinations, 120, 130 seems to be the ceiling of that kind of fueling. So I don't doubt that people have trained themselves to put 200 and keep it down, but are they doing that for 7 and 8 hours in the heat? And are their bodies actually using that amount? I doubt it. But nevertheless, dropping down to mere mortals, if you keep a good high feed rate, 60, 70 grams an hour, you can avoid the worst of it when you're out what you might call sports leisure riding. But if you miscalculate and you get early signs of bonk, you can reverse it fairly quickly. And that's, you know, go for some high octane rocket fuel. A couple of gels, that's usually about 45 to 50 grams, or something like this. Get it the right way. Kendall mint cake. That's the bourgeois chocolate coated version. The plain stuff is probably even better for reversing bonk. And I know it's not a sporting situation, but I know many years ago with my mum, when her blood sugar nosedives, you could hear a speech start to slur, longer pauses in conversations, not quite making as much sense. And guarantee if you took a sharp and the glucose meter, you'd see 1.6, 1.5, you'd think, oh, and that's when you'd administer jelly babies or decarbonated Lucozade, any kind of carbo rocket fuel, and within 5 minutes you could get that number up to 4 point something, crisis averted, and then do something about lifting the blood sugar up more sustainably. And the same kind of effect applies on a bike. At the first hint of bonk, 40, 50, 60 grams of fast-acting carb, and then just keep chomping. It's far, far easier to eat your way out of hypoglycemia than it is to drink your way out of severe dehydration. Passing the exit, or the entrance rather, to Crumlin, as featured in that Crumlin Music Festival video months and months ago, wasn't it? One other point, I'll try and keep it brief, on the hydration thing. 3 weeks ago, during that heat wave, I took a train to Houghton in Ribblesdale, and I did a 19.5 mile fell walk hike in limestone country, 5,500 feet or something. Now, I left home, I had to walk to the railway station, I did that hiking, travelled back on the train, walked back from the station. So altogether I walked over 23 miles. Temperatures, the apps were showing 30, 31C. I drank 5 litres plus in the time that I was away from home. And yet when I got on the scales, first thing I did on getting in, I was 2.5 kilograms lighter than when I set off. And you think, wow, over 5 litres of liquid plus solid food, and yet I was still 2.5 kilograms. Which, again, I mean, that's not marathon running, that's what we could call strenuous hiking. So yeah, those temperatures and those humidity levels, They deserve respect. So there we have it, a nice steady 40 odd in the beautiful Pennines. Good old Buckstones. I don't know about you, but with all the talk today, I'm ready for a couple of pints of tea. Right, so if my hand behaves itself tonight and into tomorrow, all being well, I'll be all set for some limestone rides, Yorkshire Dales, and who knows, maybe even the Lake District. August, oh, it's going to be a good one. See you next time for another edition of Clipping In. Bye bye.